All right, so James is asking, is Gog of Ezekiel 38 to 39 the same as Antichrist? I have asked this question for years. The answer is no. Gog of Ezekiel 38 to 39 is destroyed and buried in a grave in Hamon-Gog for 7 months. They burn the weapons for 7 years, alluding to the 7-year tribulation. But in Revelation 29, these saints are destroyed by God's hand by fire. Also, Antichrist is never buried. He is thrown in the lake of fire with the false prophet on the 6th bowl during Armageddon at the very end. God bless and thank you for your time. So going back to the question here, is Gog of Ezekiel 38 to 39 the same as Antichrist? That's the question.
Yeah, and I agree, James, with your conclusion that the answer is no. To just jump straight to it, though the way I get there is a little bit different. So regarding Ezekiel 38 to 39, those could be confusing verses, in part because I believe a lot of Ezekiel were literal prophecies that were supposed to be fulfilled as to the Israelite people, but they were conditional prophecies, and because Israel went astray, the literal application of those prophecies never came to pass. A good example is the temple that was prophesied in Ezekiel. That has not been built because, and even the Jews themselves say because they went astray, God didn't let them build it. So, but Revelation 20, starting at verse 4, gives us some background and actually gets into about Gog versus Magog. And in a sense, I believe what Revelation is telling us, there's a new spiritual application of the Gog Magog prophesied in Ezekiel, and it applies differently now to God's people at the end of times. In fact, I'll say the way past the end of time. The context of Revelation 20 is it's talking about, thrones are set and those who were beheaded, we're seeing these people and they're reigning with Christ for 1,000 years. So God's people are raised up, they're living with God for 1,000 years. This is the millennium. During this same millennium, in verse 5, it says, but the rest of the dead did not live again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So the dead are gone. They're not doing anything, and then they're raised up in verse 6. If you jump to verse 7, now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive all the nations. And it says, this is from the four corners of the earth. This is Gog and Magog. The Bible's telling us, Gog and Magog are all the people of the earth, all the wicked who ever lived, who are not in God's holy kingdom, who are not saved. All these people then are Gog versus Magog. And what happens? As a rally by Satan, it says, they went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from heaven and then devoured them. They then get destroyed by God. That's Gog versus Magog in the new application given to us in Revelation. So what's this tribulation that you talk about? I recommend you go and study Daniel 9, starting at verse 24 through 27. It talks about this 70-week prophecy. And as part of this 70-week prophecy, it talks about this 1 week that's separated from the rest. And a lot of people draw a conclusion, say this is talking about this tribulation. But no, this is a special week because this is the week talking about the work of the Messiah. Again, we're a little short on time, but talking about this week, it says, in the midst of the week, he, talking about the Messiah, shall cause the sacrifice and oblations to cease, and for the overspreading of the abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So Christ, in the middle of this 7-week period, at this 3.5 years into his ministry, he dies, and his death brought an end to the need of the sanctuary service. We were talking about earlier, right? The Sabbaths and the holy days and the foods and all these things were done away with because Christ put an end to it. It got fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And again, what is the Messiah? The Messiah means the anointed one. When did Christ get anointed? At his baptism. That marks the beginning of of the coming of the Messiah, in a sense. You can calculate this period of time, these 70 weeks, because it says in Daniel, it talks about a decree in verse 25. Know ye therefore, understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. You take up that period of time, calculate each of those weeks, turn them into a number of days, and count each day as a year. And I'll give you the starting point of this. It's in Ezra 1, verses 2 to 4. That's where the decree to go forth and rebuild Jerusalem is. And that starting year is 587 BC. And if you add that period of time, those 70 weeks minus the 1 week, you end up exactly when Jesus was baptized. It's amazing. You can mathematically prove a prophecy predating Jesus by 300 or 400 years, a prophecy found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's predicting to the day Jesus' baptism. This is how you could prove to atheists the Bible is real. It's incredible. But we do ourselves a disservice by these theories that really aren't true. So yeah, Antichrist, you're right, is destroyed at the time of the sixth seal, the sixth vial. As you point out, it's a totally different thing we don't have time to get into. But yeah, Antichrist, Gog versus Magog, two different things.
Great.